I think one of the things that's pleased me most about working on leading cultural destinations is the opportunity it's given me to reconsider the possibility of the museum as a slow space. I think it's very easy to forget that culture is something to be absorbed and not just consumed, that culture grows slowly over time, and in order to flourish it needs to be given time. I think we risk living in a cultural cacophony where we're constantly bombarded with different cultural information, which is very exciting, but it also makes it much more difficult for that process of absorption to take place. An interesting example is that in the 17th century, a literate person in their lifetime would consume as much printed material as can be found in a single average Sunday newspaper. I think we should reflect on that. I think the museum offers an opportunity to switch off from this sense of cultural bombardment and reconnect with our own capacity as human beings to focus on artworks and enjoy them in a much more meditative and slow fashion.
Well, I think if we think about the way that digital technology has really changed museum culture, we can say the revolution has been a permanent one, because I think how we understand art today is all through digitalization. And in fact, digitalization has become art itself, and I guess I must be the product of that, because I make film video installations, which are works which begin their life in a sense as digital these days, which are considered works of art which get shown in museums. But I would say that generally digitalization has in a way created a kind of efficiency, which of course some dread, but I think lots of us celebrate, because it gives a sort of greater ease and a kind of more smoother, if you like, understanding of works in terms of how you can read them, how you can look at them and perceive them. And I think that's been very important, to have this sort of, if you like, wide appreciation of art by a wide audience, which I think previously was not exactly the same case.
I think the future of the museums will be influenced by a change of the society, and the society is changing in a way that we're not longer staying opposite of something. We are involved, we are entering situations, and we are part of these situations. So also the artists create artworks that create situations, and I think in a way museums mirroring what's going on in the society, and we develop a kind of new culture in museums that is more the culture of, let's say, systems or processes, not longer than objects. And I think this is the real interesting shift for also the work of Philippe Pareno. He was from his very beginning a person that is not doing only objects, he's doing relations.
How is social media changing our relationship to history? I guess it's interesting, you know, because museums originally, I guess, were about collecting and preserving rather than developing and changing, and giving us the tools through this preservation of artifacts to understand our own sense of history, our own sense of self, and therefore be able to have the tools to control our relationship to the future. But I guess, yeah, it's true, social media is a form of collecting as well, but image-based and also very, very, very rapid. It's very interesting, it's true. I mean, for someone who's ADD like me, it's like a nightmare. It's like completely, it's so much stimulation. It's crazy, you know, so that's where I think it really affects your sleep, as you were mentioning, and your dreams, and the way you understand time, and the way everything feels like it's a race. Actually, it's, social media in some ways really affects our sense of time as well and accelerates it. And then when I was away on that residency, actually there was no internet because we were in somewhere very remote, and the absence of all forms of distraction brought back a different sense of time, which I think is the time which is our real time, the time of like the human, the time of slowness and of how we actually understand things. Kind of like when you walk, you feel, oh, this is probably the speed at which I'm supposed to take in information. My brain can actually handle it. So yeah, how does it affect our sense of history? I mean, it's difficult to tell just yet, I guess. But it definitely abstracts it a lot, probably. Makes us have immediate jerk responses to things. It probably does affect like the course of things. I mean, there's that amazing philosopher, what's his name? The chap who looks like he takes a lot of coke. He's really like on edge, but he's amazing. I've got a hole in my head. You know him. Anyway. And he says that he won't respond to any news or any contemporary issue before 7 years have passed, because he feels there's no way that he can have a proper understanding of the repercussions of that incident before letting time go past. And it's true, there is like, everything is like, people have to have responses straight away, people have to get back to something, and in a way force like knee-jerk reactions that actually can have really, really devastating social and political and historical implications.
So I think there's an interesting tension right now in the museum world, where there's a desire to really engage with new technology and exciting new gadgets and gizmos, and I think it's very important to focus on what is relevant for the museum, but also what is high quality and what is going to add to the overall experience of the visitors to the museum. I'm very much more a person who's looking for, and also a person that believes that we're attached to these things 24/7, and more people are looking for spaces where they can actually just tune out and get away from the phone and inwardly reflect on the society that they're living in. And I think a museum, for me, should focus much more on creating those kind of environments with incredible content that allows a person to detach from the digital world for a few hours, rather than reinforcing the constant the digital treadmill that we're all on every day. It's a difficult question. It's a difficult challenge, because there is some incredible tech. I mean, I remember the one show that I went to go and see. I think we went to go and see it with the falling water, and that was cameras moving around, and that was. So I'm countering my own argument as I'm giving it here, because there's some incredible shows that I've seen that are tech related as well.
Yeah, for me it's not a kind of binary left or right kind of conversation or decision. I think if we look at the prevalence of the use of technology within society, how can we not have that as part of the artistic conversation? It would be insane not to be able to make commentary upon that and the immersive nature of that, and perhaps flip that or play with that or reflect that back. And then I think that also kind of encourages the opposite, which is about, okay, well, what if you have the absolute exclusion of that? And how do people feel after that moment? And that will make those pieces much more powerful, because what is the norm? So I think, for me, it's not really left or right. It's about, for an art piece or an institution to really have that kind of conversation about technology, which is one of the most relevant conversations you can have currently, it needs to engage in that technology in some way and subvert it or twist it or reframe it to then start you thinking. I think the bit where technology falls down is if it makes art almost kind of too easy to assimilate and acquire, like you would acquire, you'd have a meal or go on a journey. It's too simple, and I think that's what technology is constantly trying to do, is to make our lives easier, or their perception of what is easier. And I think it's not art's job to do that. Art's job is to challenge what we may think and to make us think. And so when too much immersive digital media is used to convey another message, and it becomes too easy for consumption, that's when I think you start getting in difficult territory. But I think if you actually use that technology and subvert it in some way, then you're contributing to the conversation, which I think is essential.